Welcome to Self Love and Sweat, the podcast, the place where you'll get inspired to live your life unapologetically, embrace your perfect imperfections, and do what sets your soul on fire. I'm your host, Lunden Souza. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Danielle Massi back on the show. I'm so happy to have you back, babe. How are you?
I'm so good now that I'm here. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. I am just so stoked for our conversation again. Right before we pressed record, I was telling Danielle how much her book, Shadow Work, changed my life and just helped me create more of what I want to see in my life. And I wouldn't be here in Utah if it wasn't for this book and for the work that's part of this book. So I'm just super grateful. And how's Philly? How is everything going on the other side of the country?
Philly is amazing. We just had the Shadow Work deck come out, the companion to the book, which it's been a bit of a whirlwind trying to put that out there and have everybody see it and all the excitement around it. So I'm just sitting in gratitude right now and enjoying a little bit of the end of summer as we get into that witchy, spooky season that everyone loves to do shadow work in.
Yeah. And I'm so excited to talk about your deck and book and all the things. But let's just dive right in. I found out about shadow work through your book, through you, being on my podcast. And I just feel like it changed my whole world. And I was on a walk a couple months ago with a friend, and she asked me, "Have you done shadow work?" And I was like, "Yes. Oh my gosh, I love it. Danielle Massi, this book." And she was like, "Oh my gosh, no, I'm too afraid to do shadow work." And so I want to start the conversation there for the people listening that maybe have heard of shadow work, or maybe they've never heard of it before, but they're like, "I don't know about the shadows. I don't know if I want to be there." Why are people so afraid of diving into this shadow work?
Well, let's start with the obvious fact that it's called shadow work, and that sounds really ominous and scary. The idea of our shadows, not even in a psychological aspect, but just in life, it means that there's darkness, and we're very afraid of the dark. We, as kids, are afraid to be in spaces where it might be too dark, where things might cast shadows. Shadows can look creepy because you can manipulate them and change the way that they are. And I think that idea of the shadow being a scary space translate over into what people think shadow work is and what it's all about, which there's so much confusion around just what is shadow work. We even see it on places like TikTok, where so many people are talking about it, and you can watch 100 videos and go, "I don't even know what this is."
Yeah. And so I know we talked about this on the first episode of what shadow work is, and I want everyone to go back and listen to that. But can we just do a quick, rundown of what that is and start there?
Of course. So back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, Carl Jung, who was the protege of Sigmund Freud, came up with this idea that we have memories and information that is repressed and buried so deep down within our psyche that it's kind of hard for us to access without someone else's help or without knowing exactly how to get there. He called it the shadow, and shadow work was the process of being in a deep meditative state where you could access that space and pull up those memories in an effort to heal them. For us as people, when we think about how many moments we have throughout our lifetimes, there's so much that the brain doesn't know what to do with, so it stuffs it and buries it down. It is not all bad, and I cannot stress this enough. A lot of the things that live in that repressed, buried space are things like a license plate that you've passed on the street that your brain goes, "Oh, JPF 2287, which is weird if somebody listening to this is that one.
I'm
You'll
like,
have
if
to
that's
reach out.
somebody's license plate, I'm
Let
going to
us
die laughing.
know.
If it's yours, let us know.
I probably just saw it at some point in my lifetime, and our brain actually catalogs that information. Every second of every day of our lives is stored somewhere within the mind. We just don't need to access information like that on a regular basis. So what happens is it gets pushed and it gets buried, and we don't need it, but it does inform the way that we see the world. So all this stuff that's hidden changes who you are at your core. And when our brains shape themselves around these core memories and these experiences, we see the world very differently. Some of us are triggered by things that other people around us look at us and go, why does that even bother you?
Yeah.
Why is it that this is making you feel this way? Calm down, relax. It's not a big deal. How many times do we hear that in a single month? And it's because of your shadows. So, shadow is really not scary. It's just the stuff you can't see easily. There's been a rebrand recently in the psychotherapy world of calling it parts work instead of shadow
Okay.
work because
Okay.
it sounds more palatable and less creepy, less scary. And they've done that because they really want to get us over this hurdle of feeling like, ooh, shadow work, that sounds terrifying. Where I kind of go the other way. I want to embrace it and make people feel like the shadows are cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like going into those darker, let's say, or repressed areas, I feel like being able to go there. So for someone listening that's like afraid, I almost feel like it's you're cleaning out the junk drawer. It's like you open it up
Yes.
and there's all this stuff. There's scissors and wrapped up cords and lip gloss with particles corroded on the outside and all these things that you get to start to organize and then have more capacity to do your life's work, to go out in the world and fulfill your purpose. And I feel like going into those places feels exactly like the junk drawer. It's like the closet where you stuff everything into. And just because the door is shut doesn't mean that there's not things behind that door to deal with. And who knows what you might find. Like even cleaning out my closet, I was like, oh, I thought there was only pants right here, but here's the matching jacket that goes with it. And what we can find in those shadows can be so useful and so helpful and so connecting. Like some of the deepest things I've discovered or some of those experiences, things I've uncovered. Then when I get to share them in community or with people that I love and trust, I feel like it brings us closer because we're just going throughout the world thinking that like, okay, what I see is what is, and what you see in me is what is, but there's so much below the surface that I feel like when we miss that, we miss a deeper connection with those around us.
Absolutely. We miss most of ourselves. And let's stick with this
Mhm.
analogy for a second because I kind of love the idea of the junk drawer. We know intuitively that you can't leave a junk drawer forever. At some point, it's going to be overflowing. You're not going to be able to see what's in there. It needs to clean out. We've normalized this as a culture, as a society, as a people. Why don't we normalize that for the brain? Our brain only has the capacity to hold a certain amount of information within that unconscious mind. And over time, as that information accumulates, just like a junk drawer, it starts to overflow and to spill out. That's where we see people have anxiety or depression. That's where we see trouble sleeping, issues around performance anxiety. All that stuff is because that junk drawer, that metaphorical junk drawer of the unconscious mind, is starting to spill out into other spaces. If we think back to hundreds of years ago where people's lifespans were shorter, it wasn't as big of a deal unless you were severely traumatized and there was a lot that was repressed because we were only living into our 30s and 40s. But now we're living into our 80s and beyond. So that capacity to overflow is just that much higher. And it really does stop us from being able to live life on our terms because there's so much stuff, so much junk that's holding us back from being in our truest potential.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that junk drawer analogy too. And I think those listening, can resonate with exactly what you said of just like you can't ignore it forever. And then when you organize the junk drawer, there's more space for things, or maybe you realize you don't even need all that junk and you can put something in there that's, yeah, more useful, more accessible. And like I said, I just feel like every time I go back to your book a lot, and now that I have your card deck, it's so great. But I feel like every time I uncover another shadow, another part, then I feel like this whole evolution and elevation in my personal life, my relationships, my professional life just everything gets an upgrade. So I think people, you hear, we were talking about TikTok and shadow, you hear these, oh yeah, let's elevate to be our best selves. Like we're evolving into who we're becoming, but that just doesn't happen by our conscious mind decision to then do it and then just try to control and be as perfect as possible. And I'm speaking from experience where it's like
Yeah.
you become aware of something and then you think you can just change it by doing more or pushing that feeling down when that trigger comes up, pretending like it's not triggering you and moving forward, right? But I feel like every time I've had this like death and resurrection, if you will, in my life, it's always because of going to those darker parts and acknowledging that. And I believe that in order to evolve and in order to manifest the life that you want, you can't ignore that. Like you can't. And if you try, you're not going to get to reach, for lack of better words, like your fullest potential or live your dream life, which is like a buzzword that we hear a lot too. It doesn't just come from a conscious mind decision. It comes from navigating that subconscious realm and continuing to elevate and evolve and become even more because of it. Hey, really quick, I want to interrupt the podcast for just a minute to tell you about one of my favorite supplements for hair, skin, nails, digestive, and gut health. And that is Snap Supplements Super Greens with collagen. Now, if you're following me on social media, you've probably seen me post about this a bunch because honestly, this product tastes amazing and it's jam-packed with nutrients, like I said, to support healthy hair, skin, and nails. It helps support detoxification, a healthy immune system, and there's even probiotics in there for a healthy gut. It's non-GMO, no sugar added, soy-free, grass-fed collagen, and every scoop is going to give you 7 grams of protein. And this is why I love it, because it's not like a protein shake. It's just a scoop of powder. It tastes amazing. I put it in water, or if I want more hydration, I'll put it in coconut water and mix it up. And it's like having a nice, refreshing beverage that's packed with a bunch of super greens and protein. So what I'm super excited about is that for listening to the podcast, you'll get this discount here, nowhere else, but for listening to the podcast. You can save 25% off on all your Snap supplement purchases, including the Super Greens with collagen. And you do that by using code Lunden25 at checkout. That's LUNDEN 25. LUNDEN 25 to get 25% off at checkout. You can shop on snapsupplements.com or you can shop on my website, lifelikelondon.com/supplements. And you'll see there's already an additional 10% taken off. But you, because you're a podcast listener, you're going to get 25% off when you use the code Lunden25 at checkout. LUNDEN 25 at checkout to get your Snap Supplements, Super Greens, and collagen, and all your Snap supplements for 25% off. Now, let's get back to the show.
Exactly. Our neurochemistry is becoming a buzz in itself on social media, where you hear every coach out there is talking about change your neural pathways, alter your brain, but not a lot of them actually understand what that means, and they don't have the education to speak to that. This is where the work is done. If you actually want to become a better version of yourself, you can try and talk yourself into it with affirmations. You can do some behavioral changes with CBT, which I've been trained in. All those things are lovely, but at the end of the day, your brain hasn't really shifted, not enough. You might have moved this much, just a little pinch, but in order to see the world the way that you want to show up every day as the best version of yourself, you have to actually become someone whose brain matches that, whose energy matches that. And that's where that death and rebirth cycle of shadow work can be so powerful and can really help you manifest whatever it is that you're hoping to achieve. Because if you want to be something, you can change your brain to become that version of you that can have it. And it really is simple. I think we overcomplicate a lot of that stuff and we think it's going to be scary or really hard to do. But when you know the pathway to change neural pathways, it just comes down to going back to those moments and interrupting the way that you've seen it before. So changing the senses, changing the emotions, changing the way that your body is physically reacting, and then ultimately changing how you choose to think about it. And once you hack one of those, it changes for good. And that's it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I saw something on social media the other day that was like, it's not enough to go back and heal the child or talk to the child within. You have to become the adult that stops the pattern.
Yeah.
And that really spoke to me because I think a lot of people spend time doing this work, but then we also have to be the grown-up adult that says, hey, no mas, not doing this anymore. And I'm going to
Yeah.
reach out for support, and I'm going to dive into these areas, these parts of me, so that instead of pushing them away and having guilt and shame and anxiety and depression and all of this, well, what can I learn from that? What can I bring to the table so that that's not running the show? Because it's going to run the show, whether you choose to acknowledge it or not. That subconscious mind, that those shadows are going to run the show. And then it's just going to be like, oh, this is my life. And this is just the way things are. But we really have that capacity. The brain is so beautiful to change the way that things fire and wire. And I think about past versions of myself, and I'm sure you do too, Danielle, and
All the
all of that
time.
you've experienced, where it's like, oh, I'm no longer that person. I appreciate her. Thank you. But like, I can't even find that emotion. I can't find that trigger anymore because quite frankly, it died. It's
Doesn't
gone. It's not
exist.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's,
It's
yeah.
fascinating when you think about it, truly. And I wonder, 'cause this is something that I've noticed. I should preface this a little bit. I used to teach abnormal psychology and development of the brain at Penn State. And when I was a teacher, we talked about something called phenotype. Your phenotype is how your DNA expresses itself based on the experiences that you've had throughout your life. There's genotype and there's phenotype. So you can have identical twins. One of them grows up in Philadelphia where it's like the air is smoggy, there's like more violence on the streets. I live in Philly and it's just like a different world. Someone else lives in Colorado Springs where there's mountains, there's fresh air. They're drinking water straight out of the mountain at the Manitou Incline. Like it's just a different experience. They will actually look different physically. It's not even something that's just changing the brain, it's also changing the physical expression of DNA. The one who lives in Colorado Springs might become a little bit taller. They might be leaner, more muscular. Their eye color might be even a little bit brighter. There's going to be tangible differences. So I wonder, London, if you've ever looked back at photos of yourself from before and noticed that you look different, because I look back at photos of myself from 5 years ago and I feel like I'm aging in reverse. And I'm not
Mhm.
changing the way that I'm eating. I'm not changing my physicality. All I'm changing is dealing with the stuff I've repressed and letting it change the way that I live my life. I'm more at peace now. And you can see it all over my face and my body.
Yeah.
Do you see that
Oh,
for
yeah.
yourself too?
I noticed that for myself, and others have noticed this too. Like I'll get messages where it's like, oh, this chapter, Utah, they'll call it, looks good on you. Like whatever you're
Hmm.
doing, and I was looking yesterday, I was on WhatsApp in a WhatsApp group, and I have like a default picture that I must have chosen, I think it was
Years
probably,
ago.
yeah, years ago, over 5 years ago. And it's a great picture, but I can just tell that my smile is different. There's
Hmm.
like, I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's the girl that thought she had to do more, work harder, do all the things in order to be worthy, in order to be good enough. This is the girl that woke up and pushed down the shadow, not really knowing it, just to show up and smile and be the person that she thought she was supposed to be in order to be who she wanted to be, right? For lack of better words, it just, let's say it like this. It was as authentic as I could be with the tools I had at the time. But when I look at the
Yes.
picture in the smile, I was like, oh, I can just see in my smile, it's different. I can
Yeah.
see the shape of my face. I just, yeah. And you notice it. And then people will say that too. Like, what have you been doing? What's your skincare routine? And I'm like, honestly, it's the work ins, right? I was in
Yeah.
working out for so long, all about the workouts. And now I'm like, oh, I just think the work ins are the best anti aging secret on the planet. I don't know what else to tell you.
Absolutely. And it's a combination of all these things that really gives us the ability to do everything for ourselves. And the fact that people are so afraid of shadow work and they're so afraid to go to those spaces, but they will show up in other ways, always kind of blows my mind because I
Hmm.
can watch someone be so dedicated in one space and so terrified somewhere else. When really,
Hmm.
if we look at the results, it's not something to be afraid of. It's something to be excited about. Look how things can move and look how you can become who it is that you're hoping to become in a really simple way.
Yeah. Yeah. And um, the way that I came to Utah was through your book, her book, Danielle's book, Shadow Work. I love it because, and the same thing with the deck, like it's just so simple. It's easy to read. The pictures just resonate. Well, now the deck sits on top, but this book has sat on my coffee table. And I love it because when people come over, they'll like sit down and they'll open it. When my family comes to visit, I make sure it's like really visible so they can like come and check it out. But I love it because there's so many exercises in this book, pretty much with like every chapter of like, okay, here's the concept behind it, and then here's how you do it. And it's so applicable. And I had a chance to speak with Danielle's coaching alumni or student alumni one time, and I pulled out my journal and I was like, look, this is the page of manifestation. This was all the sensory experience I wanted to have when I moved back from Austria, came to California, knew California wasn't where I wanted to be, but I wasn't sure where. And so instead of saying, like, oh, on the map, where am I going to go next? It was like, oh, what's the sensory experience I want to have? What am I smelling? What am I seeing? What am I tasting? What am I feeling? And really getting into that experience. And I remember like, one of them was like, my feet are in the rocks with stream water, rushing over them. So
Mhm.
now I'm hiking. And every time I have that opportunity, I put my feet in the rocks as like a symbol of that shadow work and that manifestation. And so, why is shadow work so critical to manifestation? Why can't we just say, oh, I want to have a big house and my dream man and my life? Like, why is the declaration of it just with our words not enough? Because so many people say, I want to manifest this or I'm manifesting this. And I just want to make sure we're doing it the right way.
This is going to be the simplest manifestation lesson you ever get. And for anyone who's listening to this, this is the point where I want your ears to perk up. We have a very specific process for creating neural pathways, which are like superhighways in the brain. Every second of every day, you're taking in everything around you with all your senses. You're smelling, you're hearing, you're tasting, you're touching, and so on. And those senses are communicating to your brain what to do next. They're creating a chemical. We know that chemical as emotions. So it might make you feel at peace. It might make you feel like you're angry. It might make you feel excited. Whatever the chemical messenger is, that's going to send a message down through the brainstem, down through your spine, is to send it out to the body. And that physical reaction that we know is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, or if we're switching to the other side of things, rest and digest, peace within the body, that's going to tell the body where to send blood and oxygen. So are we pumping it out so that you can have all of your senses help you move to run, to fight, to do whatever you need? Or is it going to let you take a deep breath and send all that blood and oxygen to places that need restoration, to the heart, to anywhere that needs repair? If you have an injury somewhere, we're sending blood and oxygen there because we have time to repair those things. And ultimately, that loop closes when the body sends a chemical reaction back up the enteric nervous system in the form of a thought. That's why we say that your gut is sort of like your second brain. It's telling your brain in this moment, we're good, or this is not good. Whatever the message is, it's going to give you a thought. If you know that that is how neural pathways are created, you know that that is how memories have stored throughout your body, throughout your lifetime. You also know that that is how new things can be created too. So, shadow work is the process of going backwards. It's breaking down the old neural pathways, but manifestation is the process of creating new neural pathways. So we want to use that exact same loop, the subconscious feedback loop, to create the new stuff. So if you want to have that experience where your feet are in the rocks and you feel the water and you can smell the fresh air and you feel the breeze from the mountain during the hike and all that stuff is kind of flooding over you, if you can create that experience without even physically being there by tapping into the senses, the emotions, the physical reaction to it, and the thoughts, your brain thinks you're already there. And it starts to make neural pathways based on this reality. I don't know if anybody listening to this has ever watched a TV show. Like my husband used to be obsessed with Tosh Point oh, and like these dumb shows or like YouTube where you watch someone getting hurt. And as it happens, you're like, oh, like you can feel it. Like you feel the pain of someone on a skateboard kind of face planting, hitting the concrete. Even me talking about it right now might make a physical reaction happen in your body. The
Yeah.
reason that happens is because of this process. Our brains are always looking for information. And we have this experience called mirror neurons, where our brains are kind of mimicking what they see and experience through your senses and imagining it's happening to you. Our brains are extremely creative that way. So if you can use that, and instead of thinking about pain or injury or whatever else, and tap into positive experience or what could be if you can use all those pieces of it and feel it so deeply, your brain knows what it feels like and can create a neural pathway out of nothing. So it's easier to get it. And that's how you manifest.
We don't have to see it to experience it internally. It's that internal way that we fire and wire to then have more of those experiences.
Yep. You just have to give those mirror neurons the opportunity. And when you sit in that
Mhm.
space, they go, we need a neural pathway for that.
Yep. Build the road.
Build the road.
Build the road.
Oh, that
I
gave me
want to,
goosebumps. I like that. Build the
yeah.
road.
Yeah. And I love watching those videos. I mean, you guys can YouTube it of like the new neurons firing together and
Oh,
building
I
new
love watching
pathways.
those. So
Those videos are
satisfying.
so satisfying because you see it. It's like I'm almost like cheering for them. You know, you see them start to go and they make the
Dendrites are
connection.
connecting, new axons.
Yes.
It's so fun.
And then they may be like, disconnect. And then the more that we repeat, go down that road, choose that road, be the adult that chooses that road, despite maybe some things that happened when we're younger. It's like, I encourage everybody just to YouTube like new neural pathways forming. Like just look
Yeah.
at that. It's so cool to see because it's so possible. We don't have to say this is just the way I am. This is just, I'm going to be this way forever. It's like actually if you say that and choose that, that's a cop out. That's not
A
allowing,
1000%.
and I say that always honest and respectful, but it's like it's such a cop out to just stay the same, especially if that's not, if you're complaining about your life or you don't
Oh,
want to have
no.
the experiences that you're experiencing.
Our personalities are not set in stone. Your personality is not written on your DNA. It's not anywhere on that coding. It's all based on how you've lived your life. There is something, like one little piece of your DNA that decides whether or not you're extroverted, irritable, but that even in itself can be activated or deactivated. And that's part of what we were talking about earlier with that genotype versus phenotype thing. Your experiences can shift that and move it, kind of like a light switch, flicking it on or off. Other than that, your personality is based on what you believe. And I have this fight sometimes with people who are really into astrology. I actually love astrology. I'm a Capricorn stellium. I am a true Capricorn,
Scorpio.
but the Scorpio's in my 12th house. So, well, I think that's like the epicenter for shadow work is like a 12th house Scorpio placement. But when we look at those things, they should inform us. They shouldn't define us. So yes, I am very type A. I'm organized. I'm a planner. It's why I've been able to write books and do all these amazing things I've done. But I don't let that limit me. I don't let that stop me from always taking the opportunities to do something else. Capricorns get a rap for being cold. And at least once a day I go, check in on your friends. Ask how they're doing. See who the people in your life who love you are up to. Like, check in with people, do something else. And that's a choice that I'm making. So, even if there's something that you feel like is part of your nature, you can fight that nature and change your neural pathways to lean into other aspects of who you are. It doesn't have to define you if you don't want it to. And I agree. Choosing to let your Oh, I'm just like this as a person thing. Define you? That's such a cop out. I used to be such an introvert. Now I'm not. I'm definitely recharging in spaces where I'm alone, but I'm on stages all the time. I'm in rooms surrounded by people. I'm the life of the party. And then I'll go home and read a book and talk to no one for a while. But
Yeah.
you can change these things. It doesn't have to be defined.
Yes, both and. Let's talk about your card deck. For those of you watching the video, it's this beautiful 40 card deck with a guidebook and workbook. I'll link everything, of course, in the show notes. But I would love for you to tell us more about this, how we can use it. And then I thought I could pick a card for everybody listening here today and read it.
Yes. Yes, please. Okay, so the deck came about. For me, I started manifesting what it would be like to do a deck before the book even hit the shelves. I could see it in my mind. I did a similar experience to what you did with Utah, where I just felt like what it would look like being next to each other on a shelf at Barnes and Noble and seeing it, smelling the way that a Barnes and Noble smells, feeling it, being able to hold the cards in my hand and feel the way that they shuffled. I made it very tangible in my mind for myself. The cards are really a perfect way for anyone who is looking to do shadow work on their own, but doesn't really know where to start. The book does explain how to go into the meditative state, how to pull up memories, but that can be intimidating in the beginning. So the deck is to give you a little bit of guidance about where you should focus on a given day. I do believe that there's no accidents. Whatever card you pull is meant for you that day. So, whatever direction you're being pulled into, whichever way the universe is leading you, it will show. And the cards themselves are split into a few different categories.
Yeah.
There's the Jungian archetypes, because obviously Carl Jung is the father of shadow work. We could not have a nod to him in there. So, cards like the ego and the persona and the hero's journey, you'll find them in the card deck. Then there's things like energy centers, so really tapping into the chakras. There's a shadow astrology section, so cards like Black Lilith, New Moon, Full Moon, you'll find those in here. And then there's some activation cards too that are nods directly to things in the book that I talk about. So moments from the book that I pulled into the card deck to just help you find what it is that you need to focus your energy on to create big shifts. So
Mhm.
that's what the cards are for and how they're used. And something that the publishing house was lovely about, thank goodness, was that I really wanted there to be a workbook too.
Yeah.
Because I think pulling cards is awesome. I love an oracle deck. But with shadow work specifically, sometimes you need a little more. So the workbook is to give you very tangible, specific activities, just like in the book, that you can do immediately so that you don't have to figure out, okay, here's some awareness, but now what? I wanted to answer the question of now what without you having to think about it to make this really accessible.
Got it. And I haven't actually dove into the workbook yet. I've been picking a card when I feel called to pick one, usually in the evenings, and I use the guidebook. So with the workbook, whatever card we pick, is there a
A corresponding,
corresponding exercise?
yep,
Yeah. Okay,
every single
cool.
one of them has a corresponding section in there.
All
So if
right.
you pulled the Black Lilith card, there's the Black Lilith exercise.
I'm going to pick one. So before we close, I'm going to pick a card for everyone, for everybody listening. This will just be one that there, it jumped right out.
I love a jumper.
Jumper. Divine Feminine.
Oh, yes.
Creativity, freedom, and flow.
So good.
So I'll open up the workbook and kind of read this for everyone, and I'm sure it'll speak to everybody in the way it's supposed to. Okay, so Divine Feminine, creativity, freedom, and flow. For too long, you have been out of balance with your feminine energy. By having either an excess or a lack of feminine energy, you have been navigating your world from imbalance. An excess of feminine energy can look like creation without action, codependency, mood swings, manipulation, jealousy, boundary issues, and lack of focus. It can physically manifest as reproductive problems, urinary tract infections, and addiction. A lack of feminine energy can look like a lack of creativity, sexual repression, disconnect or detachment, rigidity, or working too much. It can physically manifest as lower back pain, infertility issues, or bladder kidney problems. Being in full alignment with your divine feminine requires balance between your masculine and feminine energies. And the mantra is, I awaken the flow of divine feminine energy within me, activating creation, freedom, and flow.
The workbook exercise for this one, I'll pop this up here, is actually a coloring page. And the reason why I did that is because when your divine feminine, or in this case, your sacral chakra, is out of balance, you'll have a really hard time coloring and doing something that's not focused. And it's just like put a crayon or a colored pencil to paper and just see what happens. So this exercise, if anybody wants to try it at home, is just to pull out a piece of paper, pull out whatever tool you want to use, and don't think about it. Just flow. Just let whatever needs to come up on the paper come up. It's actually a therapy exercise that we use very often, believe it or not, with kids. It's like a form of play therapy, but sometimes with people where it feels like that creative process is kind of spiraling. So try it and just see what goes through without worrying about how it ends up.
Yeah. When I read that, I literally was like, you talking to me? Because I feel like that's so much of a part that I've worked on integrating, right? Of just like go, doing all the things, feelings of like jealousy, anxiety, all of that resonates with a previous version of myself. And so this card, really spoke to me, and it's so great. I'm so grateful for you, Danielle, and all the work you put in the world. And just personally, I'm grateful because I said this before we started, but I was in a meeting with our lead team for the organization that I work with. And our COO asked me, like, who's been your favorite guest on the podcast? And granted, I am so grateful for all the guests. I learned so much, but it was like, without a doubt, I was like, oh, Danielle Massi, because of all of her work. And I just talked about, I'm like, yeah, you can only shine your light as bright as you go into that darkness. And so I hope we've inspired those listening today to grab your book, grab the deck, just start inquiring of what that could look like in your life. And I know Danielle has a lot of amazing programs to help you navigate that, not on your own, and a lot of coaches that you certify in this work. So thank you for you and all of that. And I'm so grateful to have had this conversation with you today.
Me too. You got me emotional again. She said this to me right before we started recording today. So we started where I was like, oh my God. And now we're back here. But if anybody is interested in shadow work, I hope that this gives you a little bit of a window into why it shouldn't be scary. And hopefully it makes you want to dive into your shadow with us.
Mm-hmm. And real quick before we sign off, I believe it's I am Danielle Massi on Instagram, website,
TikTok, YouTube, website,
okay.
And it's all the same. Nice and easy so that it's not hard to find me. And I'll be the one with the red hair.
Yeah. For those of you not watching the video, she has like rocket fire red hair, and I love it. Right when we got on, I was like, oh, I love just, the physical embodiment of what you do shines, what you do shines through your physical embodiment. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening. Connect with Danielle. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you at the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Self Love and Sweat, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or were inspired by it or something resonated with you, do me a favor and share this episode with a friend, someone that you think might enjoy this episode as well. That's the ultimate compliment and the best way to make this podcast ripple out into the world of others. And also, you can leave us a review up to 5 stars wherever you're listening to the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you at the next episode. I appreciate you.